As a forest ranger, I always prided myself on my knowledge of the wilderness. Each tree, each animal, each whisper of the wind felt like an old friend. However, my visit to Smoky Mountain National Park would shatter that confidence. The moment I stepped into the park, I was struck by its breathtaking beauty, a realm of towering trees, vibrant foliage, and the distant sound of a cascading waterfall. But as I ventured deeper, the enchanting scenery transformed into something unsettling. The air was thick with humidity, and a dense fog clung to the ground, swirling around my boots as I walked. But another part warned me to step back, to leave this place untouched. In that moment, I understood that the forest was not merely a collection of trees and wildlife. It was a living entity, filled with stories and histories far older than I could comprehend. I had always respected nature, but now I realized how little I truly knew. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through the clearing, swirling the fog and causing the trees to creak ominously. The rhythmic thumping transformed into a chaotic drumbeat, echoing through the air. Yet here, everything felt wrong. The usual chorus of birds was absent, replaced by an eerie stillness that pressed against my ears. I paused, taking a deep breath, trying to shake off the creeping unease. As I continued down the narrow path, I noticed strange markings on the trunks of several trees. They were deep grooves, like claw marks, but they seemed too precise, almost intentional. My curiosity piqued. I leaned closer to examine them. The patterns twisted and turned, forming shapes that were both familiar and alien. It was as if someone or something had been trying to communicate, but with whom? And why? My heart began to race. I shook my head, trying to dismiss the growing sense of dread. I was a professional, after all. I had faced wild animals and inclement weather. Surely I could handle a few unsettling sights. Yet, as I moved deeper into the forest, the feeling of being watched intensified. It was a sensation that gnawed at the edges of my mind, making me hyper-aware of every rustle, every snapping twig. Then I heard it again, a faint, rhythmic thumping in the distance. It was unlike anything I had ever encountered in my years as a ranger. The sound echoed through the stillness, pulsing in time with my heartbeat. For a moment, I considered turning back, but the pull of the unknown was too strong. What could it be? My curiosity outweighed my caution. I pressed on, following the sound, my steps cautious but determined. The air was charged with an energy that made the hair on the back of my neck stand on end. In the center of the clearing lay a circle of ancient stones, their surfaces worn and covered in a thick layer of moss. They appeared to pulse gently, as if they were alive, my breath caught in my throat. What was this place? I stepped closer, drawn in by an invisible force. The stones seemed to resonate with a deep, rhythmic vibration that matched the sound I had been following. The air was charged with an energy that made the hair on the back of my neck stand on end. In the center of the clearing lay a circle of ancient stones, their surfaces worn and covered in a thick layer of moss. They appeared to pulse gently, as if they were alive, my breath caught in my throat. What was this place? I stepped closer, drawn in by an invisible force. The stones seemed to resonate with a deep, rhythmic vibration that matched the sound I had been following. It was both beautiful and terrifying, a melody of nature infused with something otherworldly. As I stood there, the weight of my surroundings pressed down on me. I could feel the forest closing in, the trees whispering louder now, their secrets spilling into the air. What had I stumbled upon? A sense of foreboding filled my chest, and I realized that I might have trespassed into a realm I didn't understand. I glanced around, half expecting to see something emerge from the fog. My instincts screamed that I was not alone. I could feel eyes on me, studying me, judging my every move. What had I awakened here? The thought sent chills down my spine. I took a step back, my heart racing. The rhythmic sound intensified, echoing in my ears. I was torn between the urge to flee and the need to uncover the truth. What lay within this ancient circle of stones? A part of me longed to touch them, to connect with whatever energy they held. But another part warned me to step back, to leave this place untouched. In that moment, I understood that the forest was not merely a collection of trees and wildlife. It was a living entity, filled with stories and histories far older than I could comprehend. I had always respected nature, but now I realized how little I truly knew. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through the clearing, swirling the fog and causing the trees to creak ominously. The rhythmic thumping transformed into a chaotic drumbeat, echoing through the air. Panic surged within me, and I turned to leave, but the ground felt unsteady beneath my feet. As I stumbled back, I could feel the weight of the forest pressing down on me. It was as if the trees themselves were trying to hold me in place, to keep me from escaping. I fought against the sensation, my instincts screaming at me to run, but run where? The path I had taken was now obscured by fog. The familiar landscape twisted into something unrecognizable. I felt trapped, ensnared by the very nature I had dedicated my life to protecting. In that moment, I realized that I had ventured too far into the unknown. The forest, once a sanctuary, had become a labyrinth of fear and uncertainty. What was waiting for me in the shadows? What had I awakened in the depths of Smoky Mountain National Park? As I stood in the clearing, the ancient stones pulsating with a strange energy, I couldn't help but reflect on my life as a forest ranger. I had spent years exploring these woods, learning their rhythms and developing a bond with the land. Yet, in that moment, I felt like a mere intruder in a world that had existed long before I arrived. The Smoky Mountains had always been a place of mystery, steeped in folklore and legend. Locals spoke of spirits that roamed the woods, guardians of the land who protected it from those who dared to disturb its sanctity. I had always dismissed these tales as mere stories, fabrications meant to entertain. But standing there, surrounded by the dense fog and the eerie silence, I began to wonder if there was more truth to them than I had ever considered. My mind drifted to my mentor, Old Jim, a seasoned ranger who had dedicated his life to studying these woods. He often spoke of the balance of nature, the need for respect and understanding between humans and the wild. Nature has a way of teaching us, he would say, his voice gravelly and wise. But it's not always a lesson we want to learn. Old Jim had shared stories of strange occurrences in the park, disappearances, unexplainable noises, and sightings of shadowy figures flitting between the trees. I had laughed them off, attributing them to overactive imaginations or the effects of isolation. But now, as I stood before the pulsating stones, I realized that perhaps I had underestimated the power of the unknown. I glanced around the clearing, taking in my surroundings. The trees encircled the space like sentinels, their branches reaching toward the sky, creating a natural cathedral that felt both sacred and foreboding. The ground was soft beneath my boots, covered in a thick layer of moss that muffled my footsteps. It was beautiful, yet the beauty felt tainted by an underlying sense of danger. As I contemplated my situation, I thought about the other rangers I worked with. There was Sarah, a passionate advocate for wildlife conservation with an infectious enthusiasm. She often dragged me into community events, encouraging me to share my love for nature with others. Then there was Mark, a no-nonsense type who focused on the practicalities of our job: maintenance, safety, and regulations. Together, we formed a tight-knit team, each of us bringing our unique strengths to the table. But now, standing alone in this clearing, I felt isolated. I wondered how they would react to my tales of whispering trees and ancient stones. Would they laugh? Would they believe me? I shook my head, dismissing the thoughts. This wasn't a time for doubt. It was a time for action. Suddenly, the rhythmic thumping intensified, resonating through my chest. It felt as if it was calling to me, urging me closer to the stones. I took a hesitant step forward, drawn in by an inexplicable force. As I approached, I noticed intricate carvings adorning the stone surface's symbols that seemed to shift and change before my eyes. They looked like a language I could almost understand, but the meaning eluded me. I reached out a hand, trembling slightly, and brushed my fingers against the cool stone. A jolt of energy surged through me, and in that instant, I felt a connection, a fleeting glimpse into the past. I saw flashes of figures dancing around the stones, their faces painted with joy and fear. They were performing rituals, their movements synchronized with the rhythm that echoed in the air. Visions flooded my mind, a time when these woods were alive with life and culture, long before the first settlers arrived. I saw the harmony between the land and its people, a delicate balance that had been disrupted over centuries of encroachment. The realization hit me like a wave. This place was sacred, a site of power that had been forgotten by the modern world. But why had I awakened it? What was it that I had disturbed? The weight of my intrusion pressed heavily upon me, and I took a step back, my heart racing. It was as if the forest itself was reacting to my presence, the trees rustling in agitation. I glanced around, half expecting to see the shadowy figures from my visions. Instead, I was met with the oppressive silence, the fog swirling more intensely. I could feel the energy in the air shifting, and a sense of urgency began to gnaw at me. I needed to leave, to find a way to make amends for this disturbance. As I turned to retrace my steps, a flash of movement caught my eye. I spun around, my heart pounding. In the corner of my vision, I glimpsed a figure darting between the trees, tall, dark, and fleeting. It vanished before I could focus, leaving me questioning my own sanity. Was it a trick of the light, or had I truly seen something? It was as if the forest itself was holding its breath, waiting for a confrontation. Suddenly, the figure raised a hand, and I felt a rush of energy surge through me. It was overwhelming, a wave of emotion that threatened to drown me. The rhythmic thumping continued to pulse through the air, resonating in my bones. Each step I took felt heavier, as if the very ground beneath me wanted to hold me in place, to keep me from escaping the secrets I had unwittingly uncovered. The fog thickened, swirling like a living entity, obscuring my vision. I could barely see a few feet ahead, and the familiar trails I had traversed countless times began to feel foreign, as if the forest itself was shifting. Panic surged within me, but I fought it down. I had to stay calm and focused. I needed to find my way out, but the forest was not cooperating. Every turn I took seemed to lead me deeper into its labyrinthine heart. The trees loomed taller, their branches stretching out like skeletal hands eager to ensnare me. I could hear the whispers now, voices that seemed to rise and fall with the wind, each word a haunting echo that sent chills down my spine. Were they warning me, or were they mocking my fear? My mind raced back to old Jim's stories. He had warned me about the ancient power that lingered in these woods, how it could ensnare the unwary. Respect the forest, and it will respect you, he had said, his eyes serious. But disturb its peace, and you may find yourself lost forever. I had scoffed at the notion, but now, standing amidst the encroaching shadows, I understood the truth of his words. Suddenly, the rhythmic thumping morphed into a cacophony, a wild drumbeat that echoed in my chest. I stumbled, disoriented, and nearly lost my footing. I could feel the energy shifting around me, a palpable tension that crackled in the air. It was as if the forest was alive, responding to my presence with a mixture of anger and fear. I pressed on, desperate to escape, but the deeper I went, the more I felt the pull of the clearing and the stones. It was as if they were calling me back, beckoning me to return. I shook my head, trying to resist the allure. I couldn't go back. I had to find a way out before whatever ancient force resided in this forest fully awakened. Just then, I caught a glimpse of movement between the trees, shadows flitting just beyond my line of sight. I stopped, breathless, straining to see what lay hidden in the fog. Was it the figure I had seen earlier? My heart raced at the thought. I wasn't alone, and the realization sent a jolt of fear through me. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. "Is someone there?" Silence answered me, thick and oppressive. I felt foolish for calling out, but the tension in the air demanded acknowledgement. The whispers around me quieted, and for a brief moment, I felt as if the forest was holding its breath, waiting for my next move. Then, without warning, a figure stepped into view, a tall silhouette emerging from the fog. My heart sank as I recognized the form. It was a ranger's uniform, but it wasn't anyone I knew. The figure was cloaked in shadow, its features obscured. I instinctively took a step back, fear gripping me. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice firmer than I felt. "What do you want?" The figure remained silent, its presence looming ominously. I could feel the energy in the air shift again, becoming charged with tension. It was as if the forest itself was holding its breath, waiting for a confrontation. Suddenly, the figure raised a hand, and I felt a rush of energy surge through me. It was overwhelming, a wave of emotion that threatened to drown me. I saw flashes of memories, visions of the forest, of people dancing around the stones, of rituals performed in harmony with the land. Then came the pain, the anguish of those who had been lost to time, their spirits trapped within the very earth. I stood upon, "Leave this place." The figure finally spoke, its voice a haunting whisper that echoed around me. I asked, my mind racing with possibilities. "Are they warnings?" "They are remnants of a time when humans understood their connection to the land," she replied. "But as the world changed, that knowledge faded. Instead of respecting the forest, many sought to conquer it. The markings are a reminder of what has been lost, a plea to remember." The figure hesitated, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of compassion in its eyes. "You cannot help," it said softly. "Only the forest can restore its own balance. You must go back to your world and leave the past buried." I felt a surge of anger mixed with fear. "But I can't just walk away. I need to understand what's happening." The figure stepped closer, its presence both commanding and ethereal. "Understanding comes with a price. The forest is not a puzzle to be solved. It is a living entity, and it will not suffer those who trespass lightly." The urgency of the situation hit me like a wave. I remembered old Jim's warnings and the stories of those who had disappeared in these woods. I was not just facing an ancient mystery. I was standing at the precipice of a conflict that transcended time itself. The forest was alive, and it was angry. "Please," I pleaded, my voice breaking. "I can learn. I can respect the forest. Just give me a chance." The figure regarded me for a long moment, its expression unreadable. Then it nodded slowly. "Very well. But be warned. To understand is to bear the weight of knowledge. You may not like what you find." With that, the figure turned and gestured for me to follow. I took a deep breath, feeling a mix of fear and determination. I was stepping into the unknown, but I had to know the truth. The ancient conflict of the forest was now my conflict, and I would face it head dash on. As we moved deeper into the woods, the tension in the air thickened, and the whispers returned, louder and more insistent. This was only the beginning. Whatever lay ahead would challenge everything I thought I knew about nature, about myself, and about the delicate balance that held our worlds together. As I followed the shadowy figure deeper into the forest, the air grew heavier with anticipation. Each step felt like a descent into a different realm, one where time operated on a different scale, where ancient forces intertwined with the present. My mind raced, grappling with the implications of what I was about to learn. The tension between the modern world I knew and the ancient truths lurking in the shadows was palpable, and I could feel it coiling around me like vines. The figure led me to a grove surrounded by towering trees. Their trunks twisted and gnarled as if they had been shaped by centuries of storms. In the center stood another stone circle, smaller than the one I had stumbled upon earlier, but equally imposing. The stones were etched with symbols that glowed faintly, casting an otherworldly light that illuminated the clearing. I could sense the energy pulsing through the ground, a heartbeat echoing in time with my own. "Welcome to the heart of the forest," the figure said, its voice echoing softly in the stillness. "This is where the balance is maintained." I took a deep breath, trying to absorb the gravity of the moment. "What do you mean by balance?" I asked, my curiosity piqued. "What is at stake here?" The figure turned to face me fully, its features becoming clearer in the dim light. It was a woman, her expression a mixture of sorrow and resolve. "The forest is alive, a complex web of life and spirit. Every creature, every plant, every stone plays a role in its ecosystem. When humans encroach upon this balance, it creates disturbances that can lead to chaos." As she spoke, I recalled my conversations with Sarah and Mark about conservation efforts and the delicate ties that bind ecosystems together. It was one thing to discuss these concepts in theory, but standing here, I felt the weight of those words in a profound way. The markings I saw on the trees, what do they mean? I asked, my mind racing with possibilities. Are they warnings? "They are remnants of a time when humans understood their connection to the land," she replied. "But as the world changed, that knowledge faded. Instead of respecting the forest, many sought to conquer it. The markings are a reminder of what has been lost, a plea to remember." Her words struck a chord within me. I had spent years advocating for the forest's preservation, but had I truly understood its depths, the complexities of its existence? I felt a pang of guilt for the times I had brushed off local legends, dismissing them as mere superstition. Perhaps they held more truth than I had ever realized. "Is that what happened in the clearing?" I asked, hesitating. Did I awaken something that should have remained asleep? "Yes," she said, her gaze intense. "You stirred the spirits of those who have been forgotten. They are restless, and their anger grows. If left unchecked, it could lead to catastrophic consequences not just for this forest, but for the surrounding communities as well." A chill ran down my spine. I thought of the nearby towns, of the people who relied on the park for their livelihoods. If the forest turned against them, the repercussions would be devastating. "What can I do?" I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. "How can I help restore the balance?" The woman regarded me with a mixture of hope and skepticism. "You seek to understand, but knowledge comes with a price. You must confront the past, face the spirits that linger, and earn their trust. Only then can you hope to mend what has been broken." As I contemplated her words, I couldn't help but think of my colleagues Sarah and Mark, and how they would react to this new reality. I envisioned Sarah's enthusiasm for the environment, her willingness to fight for it, and Mark's pragmatism, always focused on the facts and figures. Would they believe me if I shared these revelations? Or would they see me as a fool, lost in my own fantasies? Before I could voice my concerns, the woman gestured toward the stone circle. "Step inside. The spirits will reveal themselves to you, but be prepared. They will test your resolve." Heart pounding, I took a step forward and entered the circle. The moment I crossed the threshold, the air shifted, electric and charged. The symbols on the stones began to glow brighter, illuminating the grove with an ethereal light. I felt a rush of energy course through me, and suddenly I was no longer alone. Visions flooded my mind, images of ancient rituals, of people dancing and singing in harmony with the land. I saw the arrival of settlers, their axes biting into the trees, their fires consuming the very essence of the forest. I felt their greed, their desire for control, and the resulting pain of the spirits who had once thrived here, but amidst the chaos. I also saw moments of hope, communities coming together to protect what remained, individuals fighting for conservation, voices rising in unison. I realized that the struggle for balance was not just a battle of nature against humanity. It was a shared journey, one that required understanding, respect, and cooperation. As the visions faded, I was left breathless, my heart racing. I understood now that this conflict was not solely mine to bear. It was a collective struggle that spanned generations. I thought of Sarah and Mark, of the townspeople who relied on the park, and I knew that if I was to confront the spirits, I needed their help. "Will you help me?" I asked the woman, determination surging within me. "I need to bring my colleagues here to share this knowledge. Together, we can restore the balance." She studied me for a long moment, her expression softening. "It is a dangerous path, but if your intentions are true, I will guide you. But remember, the spirits will test you. You must be prepared to face the consequences of your actions," with her words echoing in my mind. I stepped back from the circle, the gravity of the situation settling around me. I was no longer just a ranger. I was a bridge between two worlds, a messenger tasked with restoring harmony. The complexities of this conflict ran deep, intertwining my fate with that of the forest and its ancient spirits. As I prepared to return to my colleagues, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I would not face this challenge alone. Together, we would confront the past and seek to heal the wounds that had been inflicted on this sacred land. As I emerged from the stone circle, the weight of my experiences pressed heavily on my shoulders. The visions I had witnessed lingered in my mind, a vivid tapestry of the past intertwined with the present. I could no longer view the forest as merely a collection of trees and trails. It was a living entity, a complex web of life and spirit that demanded respect and understanding. I had to convey this newfound knowledge to my colleagues, Sarah and Mark, but I feared their skepticism. Would they believe the truths I had uncovered? The shadows of the trees around me felt more ominous than ever as I navigated my way back through the fog. With each step, I rehearsed what I would say, trying to anticipate their reactions. I could already envision Sarah's excited curiosity clashing with Mark's rational skepticism. How could I bridge the gap between our differing perspectives? When I finally reached the ranger station, the familiar surroundings felt strangely foreign. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, but it no longer comforted me. I pushed through the door, my heart racing. Sarah and Mark were seated at the table, poring over maps and reports, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of the overhead lights. "Hey, you're back," Sarah said, looking up and smiling. We were starting to worry. "Did you find anything interesting?" I hesitated for a moment, the weight of my revelations pressing down on me. I did, I said, my voice shaky. "But it's not what you might think. I need you both to listen carefully." Mark raised an eyebrow, his expression skeptical. "What's going on?" "You look like you've seen a ghost." "I might as well have," I replied, taking a seat across from them. "I stumbled upon something in the forest, an ancient stone circle, and I learned things. Important things about the balance of the forest and the spirits that protect it." Sarah leaned in, intrigued. "Spirits? What do you mean?" I took a deep breath, trying to gather my thoughts. "The forest is alive, Sarah. It's not just trees and animals. It has a history, a spirit that connects everything. I witnessed visions of ancient rituals and the pain caused by the encroachment of settlers. The spirits are restless, and if we don't act, the balance could be disrupted further. Mark crossed his arms, skepticism flashing in his eyes. Come on. This sounds like folklore. We deal with facts and figures, not. Whatever this is, Mark, please, I urged, my voice rising. I know it sounds crazy, but I felt it. The energy in the forest, the connection to the past. It's real. We need to respect it, or we'll face consequences. Sarah's expression softened, and she glanced at Mark, who remained unconvinced. What kind of consequences? The kind that could affect the entire park and the surrounding communities, I replied, urgency creeping into my voice. The spirits are angry. They were awakened when I entered the clearing. We need to find a way to communicate with them, to heal what has been broken. Mark shook his head, frustrated. And how do you propose we do that? Start a essence. This isn't some movie, and we can't just summon spirits. Maybe not a essence, I said, trying to keep my composure. But we can go back to the stone circle together. I can show you what I saw. We need to listen to the history of this place. Finally, I saw a flicker of interest in Mark's eyes, though skepticism still lingered. And if this is all a figment of your imagination, what then? If I'm wrong, then we'll gather data and move on, I said, feeling a surge of determination. But if I'm right, we'll be able to prevent a disaster. After a long pause, Sarah nodded. I'm in. If there's even a chance that what you experienced is true, we owe it to the forest to investigate. Mark sighed, clearly torn. Fine, but I'm bringing my gear. If we're going to do this, we'll do it scientifically, with a plan in place. We gathered our supplies and headed back into the fog-laden woods. The atmosphere felt charged with anticipation, the whispers of the forest echoing in my mind. I hoped that my colleagues would understand the gravity of the situation once they experienced it for themselves. As we approached the clearing, the air grew thicker, and the shadows seemed to dance around us. The stone circle loomed ahead, its energy palpable. I could feel the spirits lurking just beyond the veil, waiting for us to acknowledge their presence. Here it is, I said, gesturing toward the stones. This is where I felt the connection. This is where the balance must be restored. We stepped into the circle, and the energy shifted once more. The symbols on the stones glowed faintly, illuminating our faces. I could sense the tension building, a mixture of fear and anticipation. Now what? Mark asked, his voice low. Now we listen, I replied, my heart racing. We need to open ourselves to the spirits and show them we mean no harm. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. I focused on the energy around me, allowing it to flow through my body. I felt Sarah and Mark standing beside me, their presence grounding me. Together, we formed a circle, our intentions unified. As I opened my eyes, I began to speak, my voice steady. Spirits of the forest, we come in peace. We seek to understand and to restore the balance that has been disrupted. Please, show us your will. The air grew still, and for a moment, I wondered if anything would happen at all. But then, a low rumble echoed through the clearing, and the stones began to vibrate. The energy intensified, swirling around us like a tempest. Mark's eyes widened, and I could see the skepticism evaporating from his expression. What is happening? Just focus, I urged, feeling the pull of the spirits around us. We need to be open to their message. Suddenly, the symbols on the stones glowed brighter, and a vision surged forth. I saw the spirits of the forest materializing, their forms ethereal and shimmering. They were guardians of this land, their faces filled with both sorrow and hope. They reached out to us, their energy intertwining with our own. I felt an overwhelming wave of emotion wash over me, grief for the past, a longing for connection, and a fierce desire to protect the land. The spirits were showing us their pain, The consequences of humanity's disregard for the forest. Tears filled my eyes as I realized the gravity of what we were witnessing. The spirits were not just angry. They were desperate for understanding. They wanted us to remember the history of this place, to honor the bond that once existed between humanity and nature. Please, I whispered, we will honor your memory. We will protect this land. The energy swelled, and I felt the spirit's response, a surge of warmth and acceptance washing over us. It was as if they were acknowledging our intentions, allowing us to be part of their story once more. When the vision faded, I opened my eyes to find Sarah and Mark staring at me, their expressions a mix of awe and disbelief. Did you see that? Sarah breathed, her voice filled with wonder. Mark nodded slowly, still processing what he had just witnessed. I can't believe what just happened. We need to share this with the others, I said, my heart racing with excitement. We have to advocate for the forest, for the spirits. We can't let this knowledge fade away. As we stood in the clearing, united in our purpose, I realized that this was the turning point we had all been waiting for. The conflict between humanity and nature could be transformed into a partnership built on understanding and respect. Together, we would restore the balance and honor the spirits of the forest. As the vision faded and the clearing fell silent, a profound sense of responsibility settled over us. The spirits had entrusted us with their story, and now it was our duty to act. I could feel the weight of their expectations pressing on my shoulders, urging me to share what we had learned with the world beyond the forest. Now what? Mark asked, still grappling with the reality of what he had just witnessed. How do we even begin to explain this to the others? We start by organizing a meeting, I replied, my voice steady with determination. We need to gather the rangers, local community leaders, and anyone who cares about the forest. They must understand the importance of what we've experienced. Sarah nodded, her enthusiasm rekindled. If we can share the connection we felt, the urgency of the spirit's message, maybe we can rally support for greater conservation efforts. Mark crossed his arms, his expression thoughtful. We'll need data to back up our claims. We can't just rely on the anecdotal evidence of a vision, no matter how compelling it was. Agreed, I said. But we can also document our experiences in the stone circle, the energy we felt, the history we uncovered. We'll combine it with our conservation data to make a compelling case. As we left the clearing, the path back felt less daunting than before. I felt a renewed sense of purpose, fueled by the knowledge that we were not alone in this fight. The spirits had chosen us as their messengers, and I was determined to honor that trust. When we reached the ranger station, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. I gathered my colleagues, sharing the details of our experience in the clearing. I could see their skepticism wane as I recounted the energy, the spirits, the urgency of our mission. I know this sounds unbelievable, I said, looking around at their faces, but we have to act now. It was as if they were acknowledging our intentions, allowing us to be part of their story once more. When the vision faded, I opened my eyes to find Sarah and Mark staring at me, their expressions a mix of awe and disbelief. Did you see that? Sarah breathed, her voice filled with wonder. Mark nodded slowly, still processing what he had just witnessed. The consequences of our actions began to materialize, and I knew I had to find a way to navigate this complex landscape. In the face of opposition, I leaned on my colleagues for support. Sarah's enthusiasm kept the momentum alive, while Mark's analytical approach helped us craft our arguments. Together, we worked to address the concerns of the skeptics, emphasizing the importance of sustainable practices that could benefit both the environment and the local economy. We would present the emotional and spiritual aspects alongside the hard data, hoping to appeal to both the heart and the mind. As the days passed, we prepared for the meeting. Flyers were distributed in the nearby towns, inviting residents to join us in the ranger station for a discussion about the future of the forest. The anticipation grew, and I could sense the weight of our mission pressing on us. On the day of the meeting, the ranger station buzzed with energy. Local residents, fellow rangers, and community leaders filled the room, their faces a mix of curiosity and skepticism. I could feel the tension in the air as we began the presentation, and I took a deep breath to steady myself. "Thank you all for coming," I began, my voice echoing in the room. "We're here to talk about the future of Smoky Mountain National Park and the delicate balance that exists between humanity and nature." As I spoke, I shared our experiences in the stone circle, the visions of the spirits, and the urgent message we had received. I watched the audience's reactions closely, noting the varying expressions, some skeptical, others intrigued, and a few visibly moved. When I finished, I opened the floor for questions. The first hand raised was from a local businessman, a man known for his practical approach. "This all sounds very interesting, but how do we know it's not just a story? What evidence do you have?" The consequences of our actions began to materialize, and I knew I had to find a way to navigate this complex landscape. In the face of opposition, I leaned on my colleagues for support. Sarah's enthusiasm kept the momentum alive, while Mark's analytical approach helped us craft our arguments. Together, we worked to address the concerns of the skeptics, emphasizing the importance of sustainable practices that could benefit both the environment and the local economy. "We can't ignore the spirit of this place," she said, her voice strong. "It's a living entity, and we need to honor that. If we don't, we risk losing everything." The discussion continued, shifting between scientific facts and emotional appeals. I could sense the audience grappling with the complexities of our message. Some were hesitant to embrace the spiritual aspects, while others found themselves captivated by the idea that the forest held a deeper significance. As the meeting progressed, I noticed a shift in the atmosphere. People began to share their own stories, experiences in the forest, moments of connection they had felt with nature. The conversation evolved into a collective reflection on what the forest meant to each of us. By the end of the night, I felt a sense of hope. While we hadn't converted everyone, we had opened a dialogue. The community was beginning to see the forest not just as a resource, but as a sanctuary, a place that deserved protection. In the days that followed, the impact of our meeting rippled through the community. Local leaders began proposing initiatives for conservation and education, and we formed a coalition dedicated to protecting the park. People were willing to listen, to learn, and to advocate for the very thing they had once taken for granted. However, not everyone was on board. Some community members voiced their concerns about the potential for restrictions on land use and the economic impact it could have on local businesses. A small group of skeptics began to rally against our efforts, claiming we were promoting myths over facts. I found myself at the center of this growing conflict. As our coalition gained traction, so did the pushback from those who saw our actions as a threat. I received messages from disgruntled locals, some questioning my credibility as a ranger, others outright dismissing my experiences in the forest. The pressure mounted, and I felt the weight of the responsibility I had taken on. I was no longer just a ranger. I was a voice for the spirits of the forest, a bridge between two worlds. The consequences of our actions began to materialize, and I knew I had to find a way to navigate this complex landscape. In the face of opposition, I leaned on my colleagues for support. Sarah's enthusiasm kept the momentum alive, while Mark's analytical approach helped us craft our arguments. Together, we worked to address the concerns of the skeptics, emphasizing the importance of sustainable practices that could benefit both the environment and the local economy. As the conflict deepened, I realized that this was not just a battle for the forest. It was a fight for understanding, for respect, and for the recognition of the intricate relationship between humanity and nature. The journey ahead would be challenging, but I was determined to see it through with a renewed sense of purpose. I prepared for the next steps. The spirits had entrusted us with their story, and it was time to ensure their voices were heard. Together, we would navigate the complexities of this conflict and strive to restore the balance that had been so deeply disrupted. In the weeks following our community meeting, the momentum of our conservation efforts began to build, but so did the challenges. The backlash from skeptics intensified, and I found myself at the forefront of a growing conflict. Yet, despite the mounting pressure, I felt a determination blossoming within me, a conviction that we could bridge the gap between the spirits of the forest and the community's needs. The coalition we had formed became a beacon of hope. We organized workshops that highlighted the importance of preserving the forest while balancing economic interests. Local businesses began to see the potential for ecotourism, and we collaborated with experts to present data on sustainable practices that could benefit both the environment and the community. However, the most profound growth came from the personal challenges I faced. As the face of our initiative, I was thrust into a position of leadership that tested my resolve. I often felt overwhelmed, wrestling with self-doubt and fear of failure. Would my colleagues and the community continue to support our vision? What if I couldn't deliver on my promises? One evening, after a particularly challenging day filled with heated debates and resistance from some community members, I found myself sitting alone by a small creek just outside the park. The sound of the water flowing over stones was calming, and I closed my eyes, allowing the rhythm of nature to soothe my racing heart. In that moment, I remembered the spirits, their pain, their history, and their hope for understanding. I realized I had to channel that energy into my own growth. I began to meditate regularly, seeking clarity and strength. Each session deepened my connection to the forest, and I felt the spirits guiding me, reminding me of the importance of resilience and compassion. I started to journal my thoughts, documenting my fears and triumphs, which helped me process the complexities of my role as a leader. Meanwhile, Sarah and Mark continued to be my pillars of support. Sarah's infectious enthusiasm inspired the coalition, drawing in volunteers who were passionate about the cause. She organized community cleanup days, wildlife education programs, and nature walks that fostered a sense of connection among residents and the forest. Mark, on the other hand, brought a level-headed approach to our discussions. He meticulously gathered data and created presentations that articulated the benefits of conservation in a way that appealed to both the heart and mind. His analytical mind grounded our efforts, ensuring we had a solid foundation to stand on when facing our critics. One pivotal moment came when we organized a community forum, inviting both supporters and skeptics to engage in open dialogue. I knew this would be a test of our progress. Would we be able to bridge the divide? The day of the forum arrived, and the atmosphere was charged with tension. The room was filled with a mix of familiar faces and newcomers, some eager to support our cause, others skeptical and ready to challenge us. I felt a knot of anxiety in my stomach as I took the stage. "Thank you all for being here," I began, my voice steady despite my nerves. "Today, we have the opportunity to come together to share our stories, our concerns, and our hopes for the future of Smoky Mountain National Park." As I spoke, I shared not only the data and research, but also our personal experiences in the stone circle. I recounted the visions, the spirits, and the urgency they conveyed. I saw the eyes of the audience shift, some narrowing in skepticism, others widening in curiosity. After my speech, I invited questions. A local farmer stood up, his expression serious. "I understand the need for conservation, but what about our livelihoods? We depend on this land for our farms and businesses. How can we balance that with protecting the forest?" I took a deep breath, recognizing this as a pivotal moment. I understand your concerns, I replied, letting my voice resonate with empathy. Our goal is not to restrict use, but to create sustainable practices that benefit both the environment and the community. By working together, we can develop opportunities like ecotourism and conservation-based initiatives that will enhance your business without harming the land. Another voice chimed in, a young woman who had been skeptical from the start. But how do we know this isn't just a trend? What guarantees do we have that this will last? I felt the weight of her question and realized that trust had to be earned through tangible actions. Each statistic we collected reinforced our message that protecting the forest was not just an ethical imperative, but also a practical one. Despite our preparation, doubts crept in. I spent sleepless nights worrying about how the summit would unfold. What if the opposition dominated the discussion? The more we spoke, the more the barriers between us began to dissolve. By the end of the forum, it was clear that we had made progress. While not everyone was on board, many were willing to engage in further discussions and explore the possibilities of collaboration. The seeds of understanding had been planted, and I felt a surge of hope. In the weeks that followed, I saw our coalition grow stronger. More community members joined our efforts, bringing diverse perspectives and skills that enriched our initiatives. We organized educational programs in schools, teaching children about the importance of conservation and the rich history of the forest. We collaborated with local businesses to promote eco-friendly practices and sustainable tourism. Throughout this journey, I also witnessed my own personal growth. I became more resilient, learning to embrace vulnerability and to lead with empathy. I established deeper connections with the community, recognizing that our shared love for the forest was a powerful unifying force. I learned to truly listen to the concerns and hopes of others, understanding that our strength lay in collaboration. One evening, as I stood atop a ridge overlooking the vast expanse of the Smoky Mountains, I reflected on how far we had come. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the landscape. I felt a profound sense of gratitude for the journey, for the challenges that had shaped me, and for the spirits that had guided us. I realized that overcoming the obstacles we faced was not just about protecting the forest. It was about transforming ourselves in the process. We had grown as individuals and as a community, weaving our stories into the fabric of the land. As I stood there, I made a silent promise to the spirits of the forest to honor their memory and to continue advocating for the delicate balance that existed between humanity and nature. With renewed determination, I turned to head back, ready to embrace whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that together we could create a brighter future for the Smoky Mountains. As the sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the Smoky Mountains, our coalition buzzed with anticipation for the upcoming community summit. This event was to be the culmination of our efforts, a chance to present our findings, share our experiences with the spirits, and solidify our commitment to protecting the forest. However, beneath the surface of excitement, a tension simmered. The opposition had grown more vocal, and I knew the stakes were high. In the days leading up to the summit, we worked tirelessly to prepare. Our goal was to create a comprehensive presentation that combined the emotional stories of our experiences with the spirits and the hard data that demonstrated the importance of conservation. We wanted to appeal to both the heart and the mind, and that required meticulous planning. Sarah took the lead on organizing the event logistics. She secured a large venue in town, ensuring it could accommodate the expected turnout. Flyers were posted throughout the community, and local businesses began to show their support by donating refreshments. The energy was palpable, and I could see that people were beginning to take notice of the forest's plight. Meanwhile, Mark and I focused on refining the presentation itself. We gathered data on biodiversity, the economic benefits of ecotourism, and case studies from other regions that had successfully balanced conservation with community interests. It was about transforming ourselves in the process. We had grown as individuals and as a community, weaving our stories into the fabric of the land. As I stood there, I made a silent promise to the spirits of the forest to honor their memory and to continue advocating for the delicate balance that existed between humanity and nature. What if the community dismissed our experiences as mere folklore? The burden of leadership weighed heavily on me, and I often found myself questioning my ability to unite the community behind our cause. One evening, after a long day of rehearsals, I sought solace in the forest. I wandered along the familiar trails, the sounds of nature soothing my anxious mind. As I reached the stone circle, the place where everything had begun, I paused to reflect. I closed my eyes, allowing the memories of the spirits and their messages to wash over me. In that moment of stillness, I felt a surge of clarity. The spirits had entrusted me with their story, and I had a duty to share it, regardless of the outcome. The next day, I gathered with Sarah and Mark to finalize our presentation. We meticulously crafted our narrative, weaving together data, personal stories, and the urgent call to action. Sarah infused the presentation with her enthusiasm, while Mark ensured we maintained a logical flow. I felt a renewed sense of purpose as we rehearsed, knowing that we were prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the day of the summit arrived, a mixture of excitement and anxiety filled the air. People started to share their perspectives, acknowledging the need for balance and the importance of preserving our natural resources. Slowly, the atmosphere transformed. The dialogue became more constructive, with community members brainstorming potential solutions together. I took a deep breath, grounding myself in the purpose of our mission. Thank you all for being here today, I began, my voice steady. We stand at a crossroads, an opportunity to protect the Smoky Mountains and ensure a sustainable future for our community. As I spoke, I shared the stories of the spirits, recounting our experiences in the stone circle. I could see the audience's expressions shift, skepticism giving way to curiosity. I emphasized the importance of recognizing the forest as a living entity, one that deserved our respect and protection. Next, Mark took the stage, presenting our data with clarity and conviction. He outlined the economic benefits of ecotourism and sustainable practices, showcasing examples from other regions that had successfully implemented conservation efforts while thriving economically. I could feel the audience leaning in, drawn into the narrative we were weaving. Finally, Sarah took her turn, her passion radiating from her as she spoke about the community's connection to the forest. This land is not just a resource. It's part of who we are, she declared. We have the power to shape our future and preserve the beauty of the Smoky Mountains for generations to come. The presentation culminated in a call to action, inviting everyone to join our coalition and participate in upcoming conservation initiatives. As we concluded, a wave of applause washed over us, and I felt a rush of hope. Perhaps we had truly made an impact. However, as we opened the floor for questions, the atmosphere shifted. I could feel the audience leaning in, drawn into the narrative we were weaving. Finally, Sarah took her turn, her passion radiating from her as she spoke about the community's connection to the forest. This land is not just a resource. It's part of who we are, she declared. We have the power to shape our future and preserve the beauty of the Smoky Mountains for generations to come. We're advocating for a sustainable approach that can benefit both the environment and the economy. There are alternatives to logging that can create jobs without destroying our natural heritage. The representative continued to press, challenging our data and dismissing our experiences as mere anecdotes. The energy in the room grew charged as supporters and skeptics began to engage in a heated debate. I could see Sarah's enthusiasm falter, and Mark's brows furrowed in concern. Feeling the need to regain control, I raised my voice. I understand that change is difficult, but we're all here because we care about this community and this forest. Let's not lose sight of that. We can find common ground if we're willing to listen and collaborate. As I spoke, I noticed a few hesitant nods among the audience. Despite the opposition's challenges, the conversation began to shift from confrontation to cooperation. People started to share their perspectives, acknowledging the need for balance and the importance of preserving our natural resources. Slowly, the atmosphere transformed. The dialogue became more constructive, with community members brainstorming potential solutions together. I felt a surge of hope as I realized that we were moving toward a common goal, one that honored both the spirits of the forest and the livelihoods of the people. As the summit drew to a close, I felt a sense of accomplishment. While the challenges were far from over, we had taken a significant step forward. We had opened a dialogue that bridged the gap between opposing viewpoints and fostered a sense of unity. As I left the venue, I glanced back at the crowd, now filled with conversations and laughter. I knew that the path ahead would require ongoing effort, collaboration, and resilience. But I also knew that we were no longer alone in this fight. Together, we would continue to advocate for the Smoky Mountains, honoring the spirits and their message while forging a sustainable future for our community. The atmosphere in the community hall was electric as the summit reached its peak. After a series of presentations, discussions, and debates, the moment had arrived for us to propose a bold initiative: the establishment of a protected area within the Smoky Mountains, a sanctuary for both the forest spirits and the diverse wildlife that called this place home. But as we prepared to present our plan, I felt the weight of uncertainty press down on me. Would the community rally behind us, or would the opposition drown out our vision? As I stepped back up to the podium, I cast a glance around the room. Supporters filled the seats, their faces eager and expectant, while skeptics lingered in the back, arms crossed and expressions guarded. I took a deep breath, grounding myself in the purpose of our mission. Thank you all for your engagement today, I began, my voice steady yet passionate. Today, we have the opportunity to create a legacy for the Smoky Mountains, a legacy that honors not just the land, but the spirits that have inhabited it for generations. We propose the establishment of a protected area that balances conservation, community needs, and economic sustainability. I presented our detailed plan, outlining the boundaries of the proposed sanctuary and the various initiatives. We envisioned ecotourism programs, educational workshops, and sustainable forestry practices. I emphasized that this would not only preserve the forest's beauty, but also create jobs and opportunities for local businesses. As I spoke, I could see a flicker of interest among the audience. The data we had gathered painted a compelling picture. Regions that had implemented similar initiatives experienced increased tourism, enhanced biodiversity, and healthier ecosystems. I could feel the tide beginning to shift, but then a voice rang out from the back of the room. It was the same representative from the opposition, his tone sharp and accusatory. You're asking us to give up our livelihoods for a fairy tale. What proof do you have that these spirits even exist? This is just a ploy to restrict our rights. A murmur rippled through the crowd, and I felt my heart race. This was the moment of truth. I glanced at Sarah and Mark, who stood by my side, their expressions resolute. I knew I had to address his challenge head-on. While I understand your skepticism, I replied, keeping my tone calm and respectful. The existence of the spirits is not just about belief. It's about respect for the history and culture that shaped this land. The stories passed down through generations hold value beyond what can be measured in data alone. They remind us of our connection to nature and the responsibility we have to protect it. The audience fell silent, some nodding in agreement, while others remained unconvinced. I continued, "This proposal is about finding a balance. We can honor the past while creating a sustainable future. The sanctuary would not only protect the spirits, but also enhance our community's economic prospects." Mark stepped in, addressing the representative directly. "We've seen the data from other areas that have taken similar steps. It's not just a sacrifice. It's an investment in a healthier environment and a thriving economy. We can create jobs in ecotourism and conservation, benefiting everyone in the long run." The representative opened his mouth to retort, but I could sense a shift in the room. Community members began to speak up, sharing their own experiences with the forest. One elderly woman stood, her voice trembling with emotion. "I grew up here, and I've seen how the forest has changed. We need to protect it not just for ourselves, but for future generations. This isn't just about spirits. It's about our heritage." Her words resonated deeply, and a wave of support surged through the audience. People began to share stories of their connections to the land hiking trails they cherished, wildlife they had encountered, and the peace they found in nature. The narrative was shifting from skepticism to solidarity. The representative, seeing the tide turning, attempted to regain control. "But what about the economic impact on our industries? Are you really prepared to put jobs at risk for this?" I felt the urgency in the air. "We're not asking for an all-or-nothing approach," I declared. "This is about sustainable practices that benefit both the environment and our economy. We can implement responsible logging methods, engage in eco-friendly tourism, and create educational programs that draw visitors to our community." The room buzzed with a mix of voices, some still skeptical, others passionately rallying for our cause. I could feel the tension mounting, but I also sensed a growing consensus forming. Then Sarah stepped forward, her enthusiasm infectious. "Let's not forget the younger generation. They care deeply about the environment and want to see positive change. By establishing this sanctuary, we're not just preserving the forest. We're inspiring the youth to become stewards of the land." Her words struck a chord, and I saw heads nodding in agreement. The community's youth had become increasingly engaged in environmental issues, and many were present in the audience, their eyes shining with hope. As the discussion continued, more voices chimed in, advocating for the sanctuary and echoing Sarah's sentiment. The tide had turned in our favor, and I felt a surge of exhilaration. Together, we were building a vision for a sustainable future, one that honored the spirits of the forest while addressing the community's needs. Finally, I saw an opportunity to solidify our proposal. I called for a vote to gauge the community's support for establishing the sanctuary. "Let's make this decision together. If you believe in protecting our heritage and creating a sustainable future, let your voice be heard." As hands rose in favor of the proposal, a wave of relief washed over me. The energy in the room shifted to one of unity, and I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the community's willingness to embrace this vision. When the vote was tallied, the results were overwhelmingly in favor of our initiative. Cheers erupted, and I was enveloped in a wave of excitement. We had done it. We had transformed skepticism into support, and the community was ready to take action. As I looked around the room, I felt a profound connection with everyone present. The spirits of the forest had guided us to this moment, reminding us of our shared responsibility to protect the land we all loved. It was a turning point, not just for the Smoky Mountains, but for all of us. As the summit concluded, I stepped outside into the cool evening air, the stars twinkling above. I took a moment to reflect on the journey that had brought us to this point. The challenges we had faced had only strengthened our resolve, and I knew that together we would continue to advocate for the forest, ensuring that the spirits would be honored for generations to come. The battle was far from over, but we had taken the first crucial step toward a brighter, more sustainable future. Together, we would protect the Smoky Mountains embracing the complexities of our relationship with nature and honoring the spirits that had guided us along the way. As the dust settled from the summit, a palpable sense of hope filled the community. The establishment of the sanctuary marked a pivotal moment, not just for the Smoky Mountains, but for all of us who had come together to advocate for its protection. The overwhelming support from residents, young and old, was a testament to the power of unity and shared purpose. In the weeks following the vote, our coalition transformed into a dynamic force for change. We organized workshops that educated community members about sustainable practices, fostering a deeper understanding of the delicate balance between nature and economic development. Local businesses began to embrace ecotourism, creating new opportunities while respecting the land. The success of the sanctuary inspired neighboring communities to consider similar initiatives, sparking a regional movement toward conservation. We collaborated with schools to develop programs that taught students about the importance of protecting the environment, instilling a sense of stewardship in the next generation. However, our journey was not without challenges. The opposition remained vocal, and we had to navigate ongoing debates about land use and economic impacts. But each confrontation became an opportunity to engage in meaningful dialogue, to listen and understand differing perspectives. We learned to approach these discussions with empathy, recognizing that change takes time and patience. Throughout this journey, I experienced profound personal growth. I learned the value of resilience, the importance of collaboration, and the power of storytelling. The spirits of the forest remained a guiding force, reminding me of the rich history that connected us all. I found strength in vulnerability, understanding that it was okay to show my fears and doubts. The sanctuary's creation was not merely about protecting land. It was about fostering a sense of community and belonging. We had woven our stories into the fabric of the Smoky Mountains, creating a shared narrative that honored both the past and the future. As I reflected on our accomplishments, I felt immense gratitude. We had not only safeguarded the forest, but had also deepened our connections with one another. The Smoky Mountains were more than just a beautiful landscape. They were a symbol of resilience, hope, and the power of collective action. Moving forward, I knew the work was far from over. The sanctuary needed ongoing care and advocacy, and I was committed to ensuring it remained protected for future generations. Together, we had forged a path forward, one that honored the spirits of the forest and embraced the responsibility we all shared in nurturing the land we love. Years later, the sanctuary thrives, a testament to the enduring power of community and collaboration. The Smoky Mountains are alive with visitors who come to experience the beauty of nature while learning the importance of conservation. Our coalition has transformed into a model for sustainable practices, inspiring other regions to adopt similar initiatives. The spirits of the forest continue to guide us, reminding us of our shared responsibility. As I hike through the woods, I see families enjoying the trails and children discovering the wonders of nature, and I know that our efforts have made a lasting impact. Join us in protecting the Smoky Mountains and preserving the delicate balance between nature and community. Advocate for sustainable practices in your area, support local conservation efforts, and engage in discussions about the environment. Every voice matters, and together, we can create a brighter future for our planet. Participate in local cleanup events, educate others about the importance of conservation, and share your love for nature with the next generation. Let us honor the spirits of the forest by taking action today, because the future of our environment depends on our collective efforts. Together, we can make a difference.